بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الواحد القهار العزيز الغفار مكور الليل على النهار تذكرة لأولي القلوب والأبصار وتبصرة لذوي الألباب والاعتبار الذي أيقظ من خلقه من اصطفاه فزهدهم في هذه الدار وشغلهم بمراقبته وإدامة الأفكار وملازمة الاتعاظ والأذكار. Amma ba'd. We are inching ever closer to the month of Ramadan, and we have heard time and again that the month of Ramadan, this is a month of great opportunities. The magnanimity, the greatness, the augustness of anything, of any event, it can be gauged from the preparation and the people who are involved. This is the month where the angels arrive, they pray and they seek forgiveness for the ones who are witnessing the great month of Ramadan. So this is the month where we need to ensure that we give our complete effort, we give our all, and we devote ourselves completely to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The greatness of this month, this can be understood from the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ has stated, Atakum Ramadan Shahrun Mubarak, that the month of Ramadan has dawned upon you. This is a very virtuous month. Faradallahu alaykum siyamahu. It is in this month that Allah has made mandatory upon you fasting. Tuftahu fihi abwabu sama. It is in this month that the gates of heaven, the doors of Jannah, they're open. وَتُغْلَقُ فِيهِ أَبْوَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. And in this month, by the virtues that are found in this month, one of them is that the doors of Jahannam, they are locked. So this month is the month of great opportunities to be gained, to gain the proximity of Allah Azza wa Jal. It is in this month that the tahajjud and nafil, we should have this desire to stay awake. Ramadan is the ideal time to make it a habit that we perform our tahajjud, we do extra nawafil. We have to get up for suhoor anyway. We have to get up and eat, partake in the pre-dawn meal. This is an excuse for us to offer tahajjud, to do that extra nafil. Tahajjud prayer, this is a very Mubarak prayer. It was something that the Prophet ﷺ, throughout his entire time, throughout his entire life, the Prophet of Allah, he would devote himself towards tahajjud. He would offer tahajjud. So this was something that started in Makkah. It was sanctioned it began in Makkah, and it continued while the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina and stayed in Medina until up to his departure from this world. So tahajjud, this is an opportune time to get up in the month of Ramadan, considering that we have to get up for suhoor anyway, which was a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Another thing to keep in mind is that this is the month of dua, to make as much dua as possible. Fervently we should make dua. وَإِنَّ لِكُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ وَلَيْلَةٍ دَعْوَةٌ مُسْتَجَابَةٌ. That each Muslim, every single day, for that person who fasts, he has a dua that is mustajab. It is going to be accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal. So we should fervently make dua throughout the entire day in the month of Ramadan. This is what the month of Ramadan is for. And tilawa of the Quran. Tilawa of the Quran, this is of paramount importance. Aswad, rahimahullah, he was one of the students of Abdullah bin Masud. He would complete the Quran in the month of Ramadan every 2 nights. Every 2 nights he would complete a recitation of the Quran. Imam Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, rahimahullah, he was a tabi'i. He would say that the month of Ramadan is only for reciting the Quran. So he would stop all other practices When I say practices, I'm talking about mudhakaratul ilm. He would stop teaching. He would stop. He wouldn't take on any students, and he would devote himself completely to the month of Ramadan by reciting the Quran as much as possible. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, rahimahullah, they would complete the Quran 60 times in the month of Ramadan. 60 times in the month of Ramadan, which means that throughout the entire day, they were reciting the Quran in a perpetual state. They were reciting the Quran continuously. They were reciting the Quran. No time was wasted. Imam Malik rahimahullah, he stopped lessons of hadith and tilawa. Everybody knows Imam Malik rahimahullah. He would sit in Masjid Nabawi. He would deliver in Masjid Nabawi durus throughout the entire day. He would narrate the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And in the month of Ramadan, he would stop all lessons and he would only engage in the tilawah of the Quran. Just for the tilawah of the Quran, he would stop the lessons. He would stop Qala Rasulullah ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ said, just to devote himself to the tilawah and recitation of the Quran. Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, he would leave the month of Ramadan when it came to all other things, and he would just engage in tilawah. He would, all nafal ibadah he would leave. He would not even do nafal supererogatory ibadah. He would just devote his time and give himself to the Quran in totality. In the month of Ramadan, another thing to keep in mind is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hadith, it teaches us two forms of dhikr. وَأَمَّا الْخَصْلَتَانَ اللَّتَانِ تُرْضُونَ بِهَا بِرَبَّكُمْ فَشَهَادَةُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا. There's two forms of dhikr that are very virtuous in the month of Ramadan. The first is the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And the second is istighfar. Istighfar in the month of Ramadan as much as possible. Taraweeh, this is something else that we do in the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan, this is the month of Quran. This is also the month of Qiyam, that we stand. We stand vigil during the nights of Ramadan. During the nights of Ramadan, we make it a point to stand for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, we cannot come to the masjid. Yes, we're not in a position where we're going to have Taraweeh at the moment. But the least we can do is that we can start Taraweeh at home. Stick to the last 10 surahs. Stick to the last 10 surahs after the Isha and do your Taraweeh in this manner. This is the best way to do it. Appoint someone as the Imam and do Taraweeh and do it consistently. Do the Taraweeh consistently, because the Taraweeh, this is something that the Prophet ﷺ performed in his life. The Sahaba, they performed the Taraweeh in their lifetime. This was a perpetual practice, and it is continuing up to now. This is a perpetual practice of 1400 years where the Prophet did Taraweeh, and those who came after, the generations that came after him, they have continuously performed Taraweeh as well. So because we can't come to the masjid, this is not an excuse that we omit and disregard the Taraweeh altogether. Make it a point to offer Taraweeh at home. Another thing to keep in mind is sympathy and generosity, that we must be generous in the month of Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ, he was most generous in the month of Ramadan. If that was even possible, he would give himself to the month of Ramadan completely and in totality. So he was the most generous in the month of Ramadan. The most important thing is staying away from sin. If we want our fasts to benefit us, if we want our fast to benefit us, if we want the Quran to benefit us, if we want the month of Ramadan to benefit us, then we have to stay away from sin. The Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِ إِلَّا الْجُوعِ, that often a fasting person doesn't experience anything in his fasting except hunger. Because throughout the entire day, what is he doing? That person is engaging in ghiba, in backbiting, in slandering, in different types of vices, different types of evils. This person may be fasting, but the benefit of that fast, the spirituality of that fast is not going to affect him. It is not going to benefit him in the slightest. So in the month of Ramadan, we need to stay away from sin. Keep a social free zone in the month of Ramadan. What we should do is keep a social free zone in the month of Ramadan. Texting excessively, social media excessively, having unnecessary conversations in the month of Ramadan just to pass time. These are things that can lead to other issues, other vices. So the best thing to do is that the month of Ramadan we should keep it to ourselves. We should keep the month of Ramadan to ourselves. We should keep the month of Ramadan as if we are zealously protecting it. That This is how we should treat the month of Ramadan, that we are guarding it with everything in our being. There was a scholar who would say that if I don't protect my hearing, I don't lower my gaze, I look at things that I'm not supposed to be looking at, I don't remain silent, then my fast will just be hunger. My fast will be nothing but hunger and thirst. If I say that I have fasted entire day, then the reality is that I haven't fasted. The reality is that I haven't fasted. So the month of Ramadan, this is the month where we need to understand that we have an obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All around the world, governments, they're battling this coronavirus pandemic. And this is what? It's an effort to combat this disease. They have what they have done is that they have enforced various types of lockdowns. However, despite the lockdowns in different countries, they have different regulations, they have different penalties for violations. All the lockdowns have one and the same goal, and that is to flatten the curve of transmission. In other words, the objective is to slow the spread of the disease so that the healthcare systems, they don't become overwhelmed. In this manner, instead of the entire population becoming infected at once, small isolated pockets of people, they may become infected. So thus, it makes it easier for the healthcare system to deal with and to contain the infection. Now, from the government's approach to dealing with this coronavirus, there is a lesson for us all. And this is what I want to pinpoint. There's a lesson for each and every single one of us. The lesson of flattening the curve of sin. The lesson of flattening the curve of sin. So as we approach the Ramadan, we all desire to derive maximum benefit and reap maximum rewards in this blessed month. But if we enter the month ill-prepared, persisting in our bad habits and our evil ways, then the virus of our sins will continue to infect us and overwhelm our systems throughout the month of Ramadan. Then what happens? Before we know it, the month is over. We will be no better off than we were before the month of Ramadan. This is the time to improve ourselves. The month of Ramadan is the time to improve ourselves. If at the end of the month of Ramadan we are the same as we were before Ramadan, then the month of Ramadan has not impacted us. We have not benefited and utilized the month of Ramadan the way we should have. So it's important that before the month begins, we start practicing. We start practicing now. It's now or never. The effort is thus to totally flatten the curve of our sins before Ramadan even arrives. This will be achieved how? By subjecting our evil desires to a self-imposed lockdown. If we can do this effectively, if we can inshallah do this effectively, then inshallah by putting measures into place to curb our appetite for sin, we'll be able to make rapid progress in the month of Ramadan. Then we will truly feel the month of Ramadan. How often does it happen where people say that, I don't feel the month of Ramadan. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. The reason why we're not feeling it is because our receivers are off. Our receivers are dead. And that's because our receivers, they're off, they are dead, they're not working because we're constantly surrounded by sin. We're constantly doing things that we are not supposed to be doing. So before the month of Ramadan comes, we should make this pledge to Allah that we will rid ourselves of all vices. Anything that we see that is a distraction from Allah Azza wa Jal, we should put a stop to it. We already have an advantage. This national lockdown that's taking place, this is an advantage for us, that many sins, they're out of our reach. We can't go to the theaters, we can't listen to music, and any other sins. We can't do any of these things. So all that remains for us is to implement some form of lockdown within our homes and our hearts for the remaining sins. This is very easy. As long as we find a schedule that works for each and every single one of us, that okay, throughout the day, this is what I'm going to do, this is how much nafil I'm going to do, this is how much Quran I'm going to read. Generally, our sins, they revolve around what? They revolve around television, internet, cell phone. This is what our sins revolve around. So if we're spending too much time on social media, we're gossiping, these are all things that are not going to benefit us in the slightest in the akhirah. The month of Ramadan is for us. This is a personal gift from Allah to every single individual. So this is the time to privately connect ourselves with Allah Azza wa Jal. Hence, despite trying, we find ourselves still caught up with sins. So we need to take concrete steps. to eliminate those sins as well. The least we can do is start by limiting our indulgence. Perhaps switch off the Wi-Fi for about an hour or two throughout the day. Then gradually, as we edge closer to Ramadan, we can continue to decrease that time that we spend on the internet, and we can put an end to sinning altogether before the commencement of Ramadan, inshallah. Conversely, if we continue to indulge in these vices, then Ramadan is just going to pass us by like any other month. Months go. We hear this often as well, that where has the time gone? So Ramadan is going to be the same. Before we know it, we're going to be saying, wow, that passed by pretty fast. The month of Ramadan passed by pretty quick. Now it's Eid. Few days left for Ramadan. So this is the time we need to mentally and physically prepare for the month of Ramadan. Now we have approximately a week left. In the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and the Prophet of Allah, he would never use crass language, but the Prophet of Allah said that woe unto that person who allows the month of Ramadan to pass him by without him using it to reform himself and gain forgiveness. The Prophet ﷺ is saying this, that بَعُدَ مَنْ أَدْرَكَ مِنْ رَمَضَانَ, let that person be distant from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who finds himself in the midst of Ramadan, but the month of Ramadan passes him by. He doesn't reform himself, he doesn't gain the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. So by implementing our own lockdown on our vices and sins, we can hopefully avoid this where the Prophet ﷺ has used this strong words in the hadith, and qualify for the mercy and forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. May Allah Ta'ala assist us all to flatten the curve of our sins, strengthen our spiritual systems, and make them sin resistant, and bless us all with Jannah. Ameen. Another thing to keep in mind is that today is Friday. Friday is a very blessed day. And on the day of Friday, the Prophet ﷺ said that there is a time where the du'as of Allah are accepted. And majority of the scholars, they are of the opinion that time, that momentous occasion, is a little bit before Maghrib. So about 15-20 minutes before Maghrib today, 15-20 minutes before Maghrib today, let's sit down, make dua for the entire ummah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises this pandemic from our midst. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes this pandemic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes this plague that has ravaged the entire world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He cures those who are sick. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards those people who are fighting against this pandemic, serving humanity selflessly. Make dua for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them the best of this world and the hereafter. So this is the time to make dua. Let us not forget that. Just because we are home, again, this is not an excuse for us to just let the time go by. Don't let the time go by. Let us do something. Let us do something productive. Increase our knowledge about Islam. Ponder over. Make an agreement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, I know the ni'am, I know the blessings of the masjid. The masjid was available to me before this pandemic even occurred, and I did not come to the masjid. So we should make an adam. We should make this. We should have this commitment, this pledge. We should pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, I will be a better person after this is over. I will make sure that I do my part in populating your masajid. I will do my part in populating the masajid. I will do my part in increasing my knowledge about the Quran, what you are trying to tell me on a daily basis. These are the things that we should be thinking about. These are the things that we should be pondering over. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us tawfiq and understanding, and give us all the ability to do that which pleases Him in this world and the hereafter. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه غفور رحيم. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.